How's it going?
We're here with Mr. Justin Rowan. How are you, sir?
Good, good.
Oh man, I couldn't think of anyone better to talk about this crazy off season with. It was insane, huh? It was even more wild than we imagined.
Yeah, it was pretty bonkers. I think people were expecting a little more transactions, at least
More?
surrounding the draft.
How many were there? There
Yeah,
was
well,
like
there was so much
70.
talk about yeah, well, I know that, but that's more to do with how condensed the free agency period was. I think there was an expectation that there would be a lot of trades on draft night. None of the lottery picks ended up getting moved, which I think was surprising for people. But overall, it was just an absolutely crazy offseason. I don't think it's over yet either.
Yeah, for sure. We still got to figure out that Gordon Hayward sign and trade, which I think could get interesting there, or at least we hope. So let's start there. Hayward leaves the Celtics. We were so hung up on that thing for weeks. The Indiana talks were raging. Then they stopped, and then he goes to the Hornets, which were what do they call that? The surprise team? Yeah, they were the surprise team on
Yeah,
Gordon Hayward,
yeah.
and they come out with $120 million. Everyone loses their mind. I think it could be a decent move for them, and that goes back to me liking Hayward generally. I want him back. It seemed like they tried to get him back if the reports are true. So overall, I'm not feeling great about it because I wanted him back and they couldn't get that done. But in terms of letting him go, I was never crazy about the Indiana package. And there's all this debate raging around the Celtics Twitter and conversation sphere around the team that they missed out on getting something from Indiana. But if the talk was McDermott and Turner for
Mhm.
Hayward, I don't know. I'm not thrilled with that. And they got Tristan Thompson out of it in the end, which I think could have been a motivating factor to dropping those talks.
Yeah, I think so to some extent. I think Turner is a better player than Tristan Thompson. Thompson might be a more seamless fit because he's not going to expect to do a whole lot within Boston's offense. He really is just going to kind of fill those needs. But I think from an asset management standpoint, you'd rather do the deal with Indiana because Turner is a very movable contract. Like they were getting good offers for him at the deadline last year, and even if you don't love what he can bring to the table, you could move him if need be. He's a much better rim protector. He's a rare 3 and D center, which is tough to find. Tristan Thompson brings a different skill set. He's not much of a rim protector in the traditional sense, but he's going to help prevent guys from getting to the rim, especially when you look at the perimeter defenders that Boston has. Tristan's someone that can switch, he can defend in space. I think that overall is going to have a significant positive impact on the Celtics team.
For sure. And I've always wanted him. Like, I remember texting you around the trade deadline. I was like, could we get him? And then I texted
Yeah.
you before the offseason. I'm like, is there any possibility? And it didn't seem like it. You didn't think so. I didn't think so. And then it just came out of nowhere last week. They get him 2 years on the mid level, which again, I think that might come out of nowhere after the Lakers sign Montrezl Harrell, which was a surprise. And the Clippers end up setting their sights on Serge Ibaka, who ended up leaving Toronto, surprisingly. So I think a
Yeah.
couple dominoes fell there, and all of a sudden the Celtics ended up being the best destination for him. But it stunned me, and I'm willing to bet that it stunned the Celtics too that they were able to get him.
Yeah, and there was talk last season that he could potentially be a buyout candidate, which I always felt there
Oh,
was no real
I think
chance of that happening.
Danny was clinging to that possibility.
Yeah, there didn't seem like there was any real chance that was going to happen, and ultimately that was correct. Another thing that ended up working in Boston's favor as well was Toronto playing in Tampa Bay this season because Brian
All
Windhorst
right,
has
let's
mentioned
get to
this.
that. You've mentioned that a couple of times.
Yeah, Brian Windhorst has mentioned it. I've heard the same. Is if Tristan was going to go to Toronto and kind of replace Ibaka, because that was the whole thing. If Ibaka was leaving, Toronto likely was going to want to bring back Tristan. They weren't sure what's going to happen with Marc Gasol, but with them playing in Tampa Bay and not playing in front of fans, it's not really the homecoming experience that Tristan would want going to Toronto. So I think that was a bit of a factor, but there was always some interest in Boston from what I'm hearing. I think preference would have been the Lakers. But Boston presented the best combination of a winning team, playing time. I mean, I think he's going to earn the starting spot in Boston. I know Daniel Tice is a nice player,
I
But
agree.
I think Tristan kind of suits that starting lineup a little bit better.
Is he
I
shooting
think
threes now? It looked like he started a little bit last year.
yes, he hit some threes. I don't think he's going to do that as much. I think some of that is just kind of the situation that Cleveland was in, and he just wanted to kind of demonstrate that he can do it. But one of the nice things with Tristan Thompson, especially when it's games that matter on a winning team, he sticks to what he does best. He probably had his best season as a pro offensively last year. He's added a lot to his game, and I think what he's added is kind of conducive to playing alongside a good team. Like he now makes nice passes out of the pick and roll, really good reads as a passer. He's improved his touch. I know some of that's evident with the 3-point attempts, but I don't think those are going to be there. But I do think that that increased touch is going to translate in other ways.
38 attempts last year. I love to see that. I love to see the face-up game that he was showing there with the ball in his hands quite a bit. He's such a great fit here, and he's one of the best centers on the market. I think he's become so brutally underrated in the days after LeBron left there. People seem to think he's kind of old and past his prime, but like you said, you look at the numbers last year, and he just had his best career. Celtics fans are going to love this guy. Uh,
He's 29. He's
yeah,
29. See, the reason behind that was when when LeBron first came to Cleveland, he played every single game. And one of the regrets David Griffin has expressed is not finding in 2017 a backup for Tristan Thompson and Kyrie Irving, because it really wore them down. People will point to the 2017 finals and say, oh, Steph Curry out rebounded Tristan Thompson. Well, Steph was playing 40 minutes a game. Tristan was playing 20 minutes a game and playing through injuries because the Cavs had no backup. It was those consecutive finals runs. And in addition to that, his loyalty to Team Canada might have bit him a little bit as well, because he was basically the only NBA player after making deep finals runs going and playing for Team Canada, and the wear and tear just kind of got to him. But at this point, he's now healthy again. He's looking really good. I don't know if he can defend 1 through 5 the same way he used to be able to. In those finals, you would see him switch on to Steph Curry, and that was a big part of how they were able to basically make the death lineup a net negative. Like they won those minutes against the death lineup because of Tristan Thompson. I don't know if he can do it as consistently, but I think he can still switch 1 through 3 and can guard guards on the odd possession. But it really, really is a nice fit. It's painful to see him go to the Celtics after 9 years in Cleveland. Especially you got two of my all-time favorite Cavaliers. Well, Kyrie's kind of soured a little bit for me, but both of them leaving to Boston is a tough pill to swallow. But I am happy to
unreal.
see him in a good situation.
Yeah, and then you end up with Horford on the other side of the Celtics thing last year, and now the guy who was killing Horford for years with the Celtics is going to be in green. It's crazy how many guys you never would have thought would be in Celtics uniforms landed here. But when you
Yeah.
look at it, when you look at the perspective here, and this is why like Celtics fans got to get excited about this, and I know there's reasons that they possibly could have botched this Hayward thing to be upset about, but landing with him as consolation and this trade exception they could be getting is so huge if they end up using that down the line. They could be putting a pretty good team together in that here now. I listened to your pod the other day that you did about Tristan's departure from the Cavaliers perspective. I wanted to have you on here to kind of forecast how this could look with the Celtics. Two sides to this. I heard you talking about how great of a leader he was,
Mm.
veteran presence, that kind of stuff, which Boston hasn't had in recent years. So I think that's going to be valuable. And then I see Kim Kardashian saying that we're going to Boston.
Hey, let's be clear. Khloe Kardashian has more rings than the Celtics in the last 30 years. She got 2 with Lamar and she got 1 with Tristan. So that's a 3-time champion that you're welcoming into your locker room.
That is true.
Um,
Championship experience. I like Kim. I watched their thing with David Letterman. They like, we know it's crazy. I like her more than Kanye now.
Oh my God. But getting back to Tristan, he is a very good leader. And that was a big part of why the Cavs wanted to bring him back. There was some mutual interest there. What Tristan wanted from the Cavs, from what I've heard, is a lot higher than what he signed for in Boston. The Cavs didn't offer what he signed for in Boston because he had already made it pretty clear he wanted a little more than that. So yeah, I mean, it was a tough situation. I think they were hoping that the center market would dry up and that they would eventually be able to bring him back. So that was always kind of plan A. But Tristan, he's one of the few guys in that locker room that would stand up to LeBron, both on court and off court. Like he would call out LeBron. We've all seen it with LeBron, right? Especially in these later stages of his career, he'll take defensive plays off, and then he's going to yell at his teammates for his blown assignment. Tristan would be someone that would call him out on that. Tristan's someone that works incredibly hard. He pushed the young guys really well, even though it was a losing situation and he had already made all this money and he had already won a championship. He was still in the locker room working with all those young guys, and they absolutely love him. And what they are losing in the locker room is probably greater than what they're losing on the court, which is saying something because he was probably a top 3 impactful player on the Cavs last season.
I don't want to talk about the Cavs too much, so I like the offseason you guys had. I like the draft pick. I think Isaac Okoro could be the best
Oh, I
player in
love
this
it.
draft long term. Yes, nailed it. You avoided the
Lot
Obi
lot of J
Toppin.
the funny thing is with Boston trying to trade up, to get into the draft, I know Cleveland was one of the teams. They had a lot of conversations with Cleveland. It's interesting, both with Gordon Hayward for Drummond potentially. I know Boston doesn't love Drummond, but it was something that was at least
Oh,
discussed.
thankfully. We
Yeah,
were talking
moving
about
up in
that,
the
and I was
draft.
like, give me Thompson. I don't want Drummond.
Well, the funny thing is, the 2 guys that they were targeting, Okongwu and Okoro, you basically have those guys on your team now. Like, the hope with Okongwu was he could be kind of the next Tristan Thompson, and Okoro, there's a lot of kind of Jaylen Brown vibes there. So it is kind of funny to
Yeah,
see
for
how
sure.
these franchises are being connected right now.
Do you like Aaron Naismith?
I do. Oh, I really like that pick. I don't love that Boston ended up passing on Bane. But Naismith, I think he's one of the better shooters in this draft. I think you can almost slot him in right away. Like, I think he can be one of those token starters, even if you want to continue bringing Marcus Smart off the bench. But I think he's going to be productive. I really like that pick for Boston.
I love it. Another, like, you got two things now. And Ennis Cantor was the starter of it last year, but Thompson's a more refined, better version of that banging center, 4 offensive rebounds a game, that
Yeah.
kind of stuff that you never had before. Now you have a 52% college 3-point shooter coming in. Those are two elements that they missed mightily last year. Peyton Pritchard was a bit of a reach, probably
Hmm.
more than a bit of a reach.
Yeah.
I don't know what
Didn't
they're
love
going
that.
for there.
No.
Yeah, some of this Kemba stuff we heard yesterday here on CLNS Media, it brought in the light why there's so many point guards on this roster.
Mhm.
Probably a reason Pritchard's in here, but didn't love that one. And again, you mentioned Bane. You're selling, was it Vincent Poirier or Dennis Cantor? They had to dump one of those guys for 30, so you lose Bane out of that to the Grizzlies. Of course, somehow the Grizzlies might end up having a better draft than Boston, despite Boston having their pick. So
No shade to
frustrations at
John
the end.
Hollinger. No shade to John Hollinger, but I do find it funny that ever since he's left, Memphis has done so many moves that just delight Twitter and all like the
Well, winning the
intelligentsia.
lottery
Yeah.
helps. Winning the lottery helps for sure.
I mean, they didn't necessarily win the lottery. I mean,
What would they? They
they
moved up from like 6-2, something like that, 7-2 for
Oh
Jummer.
yeah. Well, I mean, God, with the new odds, I mean, if you're in the top or bottom 8, I should say, you basically have equal odds. But yeah, getting John Morant's great. I still can't believe. I'm happy for this because it would have hurt me to see you guys now have 2 of my Canadian brethren, but Boston passing on Brandon Clark last year, like I just couldn't
Brutal.
believe that. It seemed like such a Celtics pick, and there. I mean, the interesting thing with the draft right now, we talked about this draft being so weak at the top, but over and over again, I think there's depth. There are rotation players and potential starters throughout the entire
Why do you
first
think
round.
every team stayed where they were? They liked the guys who were there.
It's every single draft really has been impressing me lately because I just think player development is getting so much better than it's ever been. And I mean, it's the best case for expanding the G League more than they have right now. Like
Look at the
I think
guys
it
who
should
went
be
undrafted this year.
it should be a full minor league system like there is in the NHL, where you teams can draft and keep those guys in those developmental programs and have more rights to guys and even expand the
Oh, I've
draft
been
if you
saying
need
that
to.
for years. Yeah, the depth internationally, within college now, prospects all around the world. You have the base talent there. How many NBA guys are playing overseas? We just saw Anthony Gill come over from overseas, who's going to be
Yeah.
playing. Was one of the who signed him? I can't even remember now. Someone signed him, but he was one of the best players overseas, and he comes over. Teams have been watching him for years. And then there's other guys playing with Real Madrid, some of these other places abroad that could easily be coming into the G League if it was a legit minor league program. Not to mention solving this college basketball debacle that's going on. One of
Oh,
the top point guard prospects this year, Cooper there with Auburn, who's good friends with Okoro. He's about to be disqualified. He's got 1 million Twitter followers, Instagram followers, ginormous personality, had a whole YouTube series. So that's a guy college basketball could be selling, could be a reason people tune in. And now he's just sitting out a year because of stupid NCAA rules when he
yeah.
could be in a G League system this year.
Mhm.
It's ridiculous. And even this new G League thing, like who's going to be paying attention to that? It's just scrimmages.
Yeah. No, yeah, you have to have it so that it's a full minor league system. Like if you were able to have the rights to like 6, 7 guys on your G League team and you're really developing guys and it's a full minor league, I think it causes reasons to be interested for NBA
Look
fans
at
as
what
well.
Toronto's done, and they've done in spite of there not being a whole system. They've developed guys through it. They've made them stars.
They're the trailblazers. Like
Yeah.
it's unbelievable what they've done and the way they were able to develop talent that either goes undrafted or late picks.
Yeah, and the Celtics have tried, but they haven't accomplished it. There's been plenty of guys that they've run through there. I think Avery Bradley could maybe be qualified as a borderline success there, but he was ready to go.
Mhm.
He wasn't a developmental case too much. So I want to jump around the league. We've hit the Cavs, we've hit the Celtics. I got 8 more questions for you. We'll kind of go rapid fire here. Starting with the Pistons. What the hell are the Pistons doing? That was just like mind-boggling move after mind-boggling move all in succession. Do they have something out for the Denver Nuggets? Because they just seemed to derail the Nuggets team while doing nothing that made sense for them. Like it just seemed like spite moves, stealing Jeremy Grant and Mason Plumlee out of there. Eating some dead money on a couple of guys that they're going to have to cut to make this happen. And all of a sudden you have a team full of bigs, and it harkens back to the days of Josh Smith, Andre Drummond, and Greg Monroe when they started all 3 of those guys together, even though it's a different GM there, a Syracuse guy and Troy Weaver, who just has not gotten off to a good start here. And, Dwayne Casey as well, who I think is a good coach, but just doesn't have players here.
No, I hate it. I mean, they spent money to spend money. It's still funny to me that we talk about how bad this free agency class is, and here
They
you have
dove right
teams
in.
spending like crazy, even in the middle of a pandemic. Like it really is something. And Grant was really surprising to me, because Denver offered him the same money, and he chose to just go to Detroit. I think how you kill teams is overpaying role players, and that's exactly what he is. He's a nice player, but the fact that he wants to expand his offensive game and play on the perimeter and whatnot, he's someone that can hit open 3-point shots, but I don't know if that expands beyond where he currently is. So I hate everything that Detroit did, with the exception of drafting Killian Hayes, which I thought
Yeah,
was a
they got
great
off
pick.
to a good start with that.
No, I mean, Killian Hayes, you bring him in and he's going to have just the worst spacing on the planet. Like, is Jahlil Okafor going to be a shooting guard? What's going on there? Like,
Isaiah
it's just a
Stewart,
mess.
it's just there's so many big bodies there. What are you doing? We were all waiting for the follow-up move, and it's just like, nope, we just want to spend. And other teams had cap space, and they found interesting ways to either utilize it like the Hawks did. Thought the Hawks might have had the best off season out there. They signed some guys who were worth it.
Are
Gallinari,
they?
Bogdanovich.
Are they?
These are veteran guys who can come in, shoot, play around. Now they might not have added the defense they need,
Yeah.
but
Here's the thing. Yes, they're nice. I like Bogdanovich. I think he's fine. If if they are willing to get other people handling the ball at times, Bogdanovich is going to be helpful for them there.
they have 2 defensive centers now.
Yeah, they have 2 defensive centers, but what I don't like is that with all of the guys they brought, yes, he had a couple good weeks in the bubble, but he was basically unplayable. And he's going to expect to play, and he's going to be playing over young guys. You're bringing in Gallinari. He's going to be playing over John Collins, Bogdanovich. These guys are going to hurt the development of guys like Cam Reddish, Hunter,
Oh,
Herter.
Reddish.
Like I mean, Reddish was good last year. Like he ended up finishing the season really well. I was a skeptic. He is legitimately a good prospect. Like it's I just think they brought in too many guys, too many mouths to feed. You're going 12 deep of guys that either by contract or by merit of how young they are expect to be getting playing time. And I just think it's not a good balance. I think they're still going to be in kind of contention for a playoff spot. I think they'll be in kind of that 7 to 10 range. But I don't think it's a lock. I feel like they went in all in too early. If it was just Bogdanovich and not Gallinari, or just Gallinari and not Bogdanovich, I'd feel a lot better about where their offseason went.
And talk about Bogdanovich. This got glossed over because of how much stuff happened last week. What did the league do to the Bucks? Like they just nailed the Bucks by essentially revoking that trade there that would have
Yeah.
helped Milwaukee immensely. How many teams last year? It was all tampering. We had a whole. I think we did a show about tampering, or I did it with someone else.
Mm-hmm.
It just happens, and so many
The
teams have been
disappointing thing
allowed to
is
do it.
if one word was different in the Woj tweet, they don't get in trouble. Like that's what it really is. Like if they change the word to are discussing, not finalized, then all of a sudden this is no problem. Like to me, it's such a minor detail, and Woj reporting it. You should know you can't actually finalize a deal at this point. I'm not saying that he did anything wrong. It's just I I wonder who leaked this out. I get the feeling that it's Bogdanovich's agent. He's done a lot of really shady things in the past here, and this seems like a continuation of that. But to me, it just
It reeks.
it sucks. It sucks so much. And you know what? As much as I like Bogdanovich, I don't know how much of an upgrade it really is going to be, because he would not have the ball in his hands as much. He needs the ball in his hands to be productive. And with Drew Holiday there, I just think that opportunity has kind of changed. He's a fine player, but he's 28. Like I I just don't see how he's that big of a difference maker. Although I will say, I think going to a playoff team like Milwaukee or any other playoff team would be a better spot for him, because I feel like he's someone that can swing a playoff game. I don't know if he's an 82 game floor raiser.
Think he consolidates some of your minutes there a little bit. One of the big problems with Milwaukee last year is they have too many guys. It's the 11 deep thing. And I'm looking up and down their roster. I'm saying the numbers are great, but none of these guys stick out too much to me. Bogdan's a guy who sticks out as a wing scorer, could play steady minutes there alongside him. I mean, make Giannis happy, which again is what we talk about there. He wanted that. He obviously wanted the Holiday thing to go through, or they wouldn't have gone to those lengths to do it. So now where are you with him? Miami re-signs Bam to an extension.
Yep.
Toronto keeps Fred VanVleet. I think those are maybe some signs of what's going on here. Neither of them have as much flexibility before to get Giannis. Now they can always move things around when the time comes, but it feels like Giannis is going to stay. It's still unstable. You could still lose him after having a bad year or poor finish this year if it comes to that, but it feels like maybe they're close. And if it comes down to that Bogdan thing being Knicks, that's so ridiculous, so
Mhm.
absurd. Like, does the league really not want him to be there that much? Do they really want Miami to be a thing again? And Toronto, I like Toronto. If it goes in that direction, I'd like it, but I want him in Milwaukee first and foremost. Just
I
keep
think
that
him
thing
staying
together.
in Milwaukee is good for the league. And I say this as someone that roots for a team that now has Milwaukee's 2022 unprotected first round pick, Kobe Altman, you genius.
How'd they
And
get that again?
Okay, so they got the first round pick, top 10 protected in the George Hill trade.
Okay.
So they got George Hill, or they traded George Hill for a first, a second, Henson and Delhi, flipped Henson for Drummond. And with the Drew Holiday trade, because they needed to have so many picks, they couldn't have that pick locked up for 3 years because there was different protections on it for the next 3 years. So Kobe Altman got that pick unprotected and got an additional second
Good
round pick.
move. Good
Yeah,
move.
yeah, yeah. So The Cavs in this offseason, despite not really doing anything, they filled their backup center need. They got 2 second-round picks out of it, and they also got that unprotected pick. So I think him staying would be good for Milwaukee. I think him leaving over not getting Bogdanovich would be goofy as hell. I don't think he's that kind of a player. But yeah, I think there's just been a little bit too much movement in the NBA, and having one of these stars finally stay would be a good sign. It could be a bit of a trendsetter.
I enjoy that Milwaukee team too. I liked watching them last year. I love Giannis there. I want to see them stay together. The
Yeah.
Lakers, they got better for
Yeah.
sure. We'll see how much these moves bolster them. But what's clear is all the goofy guys are out of there. Like Rajon Rondo, Michael Beasley, Lance Stevenson. Those days are over. JaVale McGee is gone. Where's McGee now? Did he?
He's in
Uh,
Cleveland.
oh, that's right. All right,
Yeah.
you'll enjoy him.
We got a second round pick for bringing in McGee. So
Why not?
I'm fine
Why
with that.
not? I thought the Knicks maybe should have done that too. So they clear out some of the guys who just, weren't a great fit there.
They were last minute fill-ins because Kawhi dragged out his free agency
Yeah.
decision to screw them over, so they couldn't go
Yeah,
get
it's
someone like
leftovers
Kemba
from
or
that. It's
whatever.
leftovers from that 2019 season. Now you have a full scale championship hardened team. Pulling Harrow from LA is cool. That kills me because you still didn't get that Clippers Lakers matchup as it was last year, and you never will now.
Hmm.
But he'll be good. Schroeder, phenomenal. Probably the move of the offseason. They got him for almost nothing. So they look good. Are they unbreakable? No, but I
Nobody
still
is.
think it comes down to what do you get from LeBron? What do you get from Davis? And nothing else really matters there because those two guys showed last year they can do enough singularly to just power this team through anyone.
Yeah, yeah, and I think the passing of Marc Gasol is really going to help them out.
That's an interesting one. Yeah.
I think between him and LeBron, that is one of the best passing tandems I can think of. That's going to be really, really interesting. Yeah, I like their moves. I think Schroeder, he was very good last year for Oklahoma City, but he was not that great before then. So I'm keeping a little bit of an eye on it. I still think it's going to be an addition because the bar was so low before. But I don't know if he's going to be as good. The catch and shoot numbers are certainly promising. He's going to get better catch and shoot looks there. But it's going to be a bit of a balancing act. I like Wesley Matthews. I think that's a good addition for them. They're probably the team to beat in the West. I don't know if they're the team to beat overall because we still need to see how much LeBron has left in the tank and how all these pieces mesh together. Anytime you have turnover, it takes time to develop that chemistry. So we'll see. But I think right now they're certainly one of the title favorites. And you know what? I liked it. I liked seeing them win. I didn't hate it. It was good to see LeBron get another ring. And there was a lot of other guys on that team that it was nice to see finally get a championship as well.
Thought the finals were outstanding. Yeah, so I'm
Oh,
with you there.
exceptional.
I don't know if the Celtics would have put on a better show. I want to see them there to give them the fight. Tatum versus LeBron would have been interesting, but the Heat did something there in spite of awful injuries, terrible luck that was so impressive and captivating as well. Those two Jimmy Butler games were all timers.
Yeah.
So going back to the West, who do you think now has the greatest chance to unseat the Lakers? We would said it was the Clippers last year. I actually go with the Trailblazers. Believe it or not, I thought what they did was phenomenal. They are strong where they were weak last year. Their strong points remain. And wow, they gave the Lakers some trouble round one with a team that was severely limited. They keep everything. They get Covington, which is a phenomenal move. I love the way Covington played LA too, even though Houston didn't play them all that well. I think they have some great matchups there. Lillard is like what do you otherworldly, and I still think he can do that next year. And you're deep there. Like
Mhm.
they are phenomenal. I think they could be the 2 seed in the West.
I agree with you there. I think that's a really good observation. I think until the Clippers chemistry problems, we until we get a little bit of clarity there, I
They
think
didn't
it's right to
upgrade
be
too much
sifting.
either. Like
They
Ibaka for Harrell, kind of lateral. You don't get Rondo. You don't have a point guard. Things just seem to kind of be floating there, and you have George and Kawhi entering these lame duck seasons. I don't love the Clippers.
I think they upgraded at coach, but I just think the big issue is that unless Ty can be that leader, they don't have a leader. Like Kawhi Leonard does not do that. Kawhi Leonard divides locker rooms. Danny Green talked about it after they won the championship in Toronto. Everyone was off in their own little cliques. They weren't celebrating together. He said it was one of the
Oklahoma's
weirdest things he's
smiling.
yeah, 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 absolutely. And I mean, the Clippers aren't done making moves either, so it'll be interesting to see what they end up pulling off there. But I think Portland's a great pick. It's now or never for Portland, and I would love to see them come through because I think we're seeing more and more examples of teams actually building from the middle. Like for whatever reason, let's call it the true hoop mentality, the Ricky Bobby mentality. If you're not first, you're last in the NBA. That's not true anymore. We're seeing teams build from the middle. Denver's
Celtics
a
did
team
it
that's
kind
built.
of.
Celtics did it. Toronto did it when they won the championship. They developed guys, consolidated that talent, and went in for a championship. Portland's improving from the middle. Like the issue Portland made was the last time they had a chance to significantly improve their roster, they went all in on the wrong guys, similar to what I think Atlanta just pulled off. But you can build from the middle. There's more talent coming into the league than ever. You can get starters later in the draft. Denver's done a great job taking gambles later in the draft on kind of high risk, high reward guys. I think Portland being a success story would be really, really good for the league. And I think that they've made the right kind of moves. They got to be so happy to have Covington. To actually have a 3-and-D wing on that team
Unreal.
is such a blessing.
Last year, they're rolling out Ariza, who ends up leaving, Melo, and there was basically nothing. Gary Trent was playing 3 minutes for them. It was unbelievable how weak they were there. And they still gave the Lakers a tough time, despite how menacing of a mismatch that could be having LeBron on the wing against Melo was guarding him. So I love that team last year. They were one of the most captivating 8 seeds ever, maybe the most captivating because of this play-in tournament that they had. What a success that was. Great to see it back this year. So I'm thrilled about them. Any other teams you want to hit on here before we get out of here? I thought the Suns did some good things. They're going to be a player in the West. Them and Houston are kind of interesting flip-flops here. Now, Oklahoma City will almost certainly flip out of the playoffs there too. But then you're kind of left with Houston and the Grizzlies there in that 8 seed area if Houston keeps Harden.
Yeah.
It's going to be pretty packed around the play-in tournament again out there out west. Any of those teams stick out to you that you want to hit on?
Not necessarily. I like what Phoenix did. I think getting an adult in the room and Chris Paul is a very good move. They've also cleared the way for the right guys to be productive and to be featured on the team. Like Mikal Bridges is now their starting small forward. I
They kind
love
of came
Mikal
from that
Bridges.
Hawks position out west that
Yeah,
we talked about earlier.
yeah. I just think Phoenix did a better job of what the Hawks were trying to do. And you got Cam Johnson at power forward, Aiden, I like at center, and Devin Booker is finally going to get a taste of being competitive.
Jalen Smith
So
could be really good too.
they're in a great position. I think Utah shouldn't be slept on. I think like bringing back Derek Favors. Yes, he's not the most mobile defender, but neither is Rudy Gobert. They know how to deal with that. And they're going to be healthy again. Like they didn't have Bogdanovich in the playoffs last year. Now they're going to have him back. Denver, I think people were forgetting that Denver was missing Gordon last year. He's a major piece, and now he's going to be there in the mix. I'm interested to see who takes a leap there. I think there's a lot of interesting storylines. I think the league is in such a healthy place because both conferences are very strong, 1 through 8, and the lesser teams have interesting young guys worth caring about. And I think it's a really good place. And I hope the league does a better job of actually selling it this year, or at least the league's partners do a better job because I found it a little disappointing for a while now.
For sure. So is Houston sticking with Harden now? I had a conversation with someone about this last night around Houston. It feels like he's kind of intent on staying now, if that's where they end up going. He was working out with some of the rookies. The noise around that has quieted. Philadelphia hasn't gotten in a way that I think really could have moved things there. I don't think Houston loves the Brooklyn package, even though it'd be
They
a
need a
million
third team no
picks.
matter who it is.
Yeah,
They need a
like you
third team no
just
matter who it is.
they can't cash in right now the way they need to. Like you have to nail that trade if you're Houston. And the Brooklyn return was okay, but it wasn't a home run. And again, those you kind of know what those prospects are there in Brooklyn. I don't think it would have taken them anywhere in a hurry. So Houston's hanging on to them, and I find it interesting. You can't trade Westbrook. they're kind of the same team as last year, except without Covington and better at center, which is where they got nailed ultimately in the playoffs. So they look good. And then Brooklyn's kind of left hanging here. Like they have a packed roster. Uh, they didn't consolidate the way they
I don't know
wanted to.
about left hanging. I actually like them better without Harden.
Oh, I disagree.
I like them much better without Harden. Like if you're talking about swapping Harden for
Yeah.
Kyrie, maybe that's a different conversation. But those three together, that does not fit. That does not work. I
Well,
think
does
it
what
did.
they have now work with all the young guys mixing in and out, that whole center
It
debacle
could.
continuing?
It could. I think it works better. I think you need to have depth. You have a lot of options, especially when you don't know how much you're getting out of Kevin Durant just yet. I think this team makes a lot more sense than it would if they just traded everybody for James Harden. I don't think that that would work. I think every other contending team would be pleased for them to do that move, because then you have three cornerstone guys in Durant, Kyrie, and Harden basically taking themselves out of the championship contending mix. I do not see that working. I think they'd end up killing each other. I do not think that that would work. It's just such a bad mix of talent and personality.
Are they favorites in the East as is?
No, no, absolutely not. I still think Milwaukee is. I'm trusting Boston more than I'm trusting Brooklyn right now. We got to see what they actually have. Like that's a really serious injury from Kevin Durant.
Yep.
Kyrie hasn't proven that he can stay healthy. We don't know how they're going to mesh together. I mean, look at Cleveland when they brought in LeBron, Kevin Love, Kyrie, Sean Marion, and all the other guys that they had in that first year. They still started 19 and 20 because it takes time for these guys to mesh. It takes time to iron out bad habits. And when you have that much turnover, it's not a given. And I don't necessarily love their coaching staff either. Like I think they brought in good assistants, but is it going to be the Mike D'Antoni offense? Like, are we basically running 7 seconds or less Suns here? Like, there's a lot of questions that are kind of outstanding.
The Durant one's the one for me. If he's right, all else is out the window. He's that good. If he's
Yeah.
not, all else is out the window too, kind of. Like you just don't have enough there. They've shown over the last couple of years they're a 7 or 8 seed as a
And there's a
roster.
middle ground. There's a middle ground. Like if he's 80% Durant, what does that mean for them? Like we need to find out exactly what it is. It's
And
not
then
a good
Kyrie
or not.
becomes all the more important. Like,
Yeah.
what are you gonna do, Kyrie, at this point? And he's got injury concerns too. At this, there's so many moving parts there, and they just seem so determined to move those young guys too. Even though I love them, I know you like them. I love them too. It just, I'm real about it. It seems like Kyrie wants them gone. It seems like they're intent on moving those guys, and it is what it is. It's just, are they gonna maximize the package when it ultimately comes back to them? I
Mm-hmm.
wish they'd invest in those guys, but it's like Boston. It looks like Boston 2019 to me. Way too many guys, way too many players in need of minutes. And how are you going to hash that out if you're Steve Nash, who again is an unproven head coach coming
Mm-hmm.
in here with some help from D'Antoni, but not the most reliable coaching staff there, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. It's a more talented version of what Atlanta has. It's the same problem. So just a few too many mouths to feed, and it's to be determined how it all fits together.
Philly, are we going to overrate them again? If Chris Mannix said they were going to win the bubble. People love them because of Embiid and Simmons. They made a few decent moves. I thought they got a decent draft pick in Maxey there. They swapped in Steph Curry. Their lineups look a little less awkward. They dumped Horford. Congrats. But they're still rolling with two stars who don't mesh all that well to me. They're a 5 seed at max.
I wouldn't say 5 seed at max. I don't trust them to come out of the East. I don't trust those two together. They do make a whole lot more sense. But I mean, I think in the aggregate, some talent in the name of fit, which is a good thing. I'm very interested because I think this is kind of the make or break season, because now you don't have the excuse. You're not playing two power forwards and two centers together on the floor at the same time. You are now a roster that makes a little more sense, and we'll see if they actually rise to the occasion, because I think they possibly could. I don't love Doc as the coach there. It's going to be interesting. That's for sure.
The most awkward team in the NBA. We'll leave it where we started. Charlotte. Could that work? Hayward,
No,
Hall,
no,
Rozier.
no. No, no, no. My big question is in 4 years, who is the Nick Batum type that they are going to give the next contract to? Because they graduated from Nick Batum to Gordon Hayward, so you're basically doing the same thing there. I just wonder who 4 years out, like who's the next Chandler Parsons type that they're going to pay? Because apparently they're just destined to always be paying someone like that. I think Hayward can help. I don't love LaMelo as a prospect at all. I think he can be entertaining, but I'm not sure how it's going to translate to winning. Their other young guys are nice, but I don't know how good they are. They'll be in that same kind of 7 to 10 mix, I suppose. But in terms of long term, I don't see that working out at all. I just no. It doesn't make a lot of sense, and MJ is not doing a great job in Charlotte.
He's spending other people's money, isn't he? That's kind of the thing here. Like this is luxury tax money. Charlotte's one of those teams that they can just blow it. So whatever, do your thing. You got to pay more
Yeah.
guys more to get there. I think they could be decent. I like a few of their guys. I'm rooting for Hayward. I'm glad I can kind of make some more jokes about him now that he's
Yeah,
gone.
yeah, enjoy that. Come over to our side. We like it. It's
Hey,
fun here.
you know what? I was bummed about it, but Celtics have flexibility now. They have Thompson. We don't have to deal with the uncertainty. So there's some positives to it too. I looked at it as if you keep them, that's a plus. If you lose them, it's not a ginormous minus. So
Hmm.
there we are. The NBA in 2021. I'm hoping it's going to work. The plan seems kind of shaky right now. It's starting in less than a month. A lot of the logistics. Tampa just came together on the Raptors front. So we'll see how this goes, but good to kind of reset the league with you here, Justin.
No problem, man. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.